This program is made possible through the generous underwriting grants of Hatter Williams and Purdy Insurance Services of Oceanside, providing North County with complete insurance needs for more than half a century. The TriQuest Corporation, providing quality office and manufacturing space in Oceanside. And the North County Times, serving all of North County with complete local daily news coverage and internet services. Welcome to another edition of Living Legacies. I'm Tom Morrow, your host, and today we are visiting with Carlsbad community activist and artist Muriel Roston. Welcome to the show, Muriel.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for coming in. We have so much to talk about because you've had an extremely full life. It all started in Boston.
That's where I was born.
Yeah, and
came to Los Angeles when I was 3 months old. I don't remember a thing about that.
But you don't.
No, I really don't.
But, and I'm sure you consider yourself a native Californian.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If anybody asks me, I always say I'm a native of California.
Well, tell me about your folks. Your dad, and in fact, your whole family's had quite a history.
Yes, my father was in World War I, and he cut off his finger while he was trying to stop a ship from sinking, because he was a carpenter on the ship. And so he was retired from the Army and the Navy, and he took a course to qualify himself to go to MIT, and he passed the test and he graduated from MIT without even going to high school. So he was quite an accomplished man.
Well, I might just stop you and tell the folks at home it was quite usual for folks of your dad's era to just go to 8th grade, and that's only education they thought they needed.
That's
in those
right.
days, in many cases, that is all they needed.
That's
High
correct.
school was kind of a luxury.
That's correct. And then he was in the war, and so he was at that age where he had to have a career, so that's what he wanted to do, because his whole family were builders or architects all the way back. And
Now, you were telling me that his grandfather?
my father's grandfather
Okay.
was an architect for the Tsar of Russia, and by special permission. And so everybody in the family were either builders, architects, or inventors. I had an uncle that was also an inventor.
Okay, now your dad graduated from MIT. Now, did he come out here right away?
He was in Boston for a while, and then he came out here and got a job in Los Angeles. And my mother and myself and my brother stayed in Boston until he sent for us. And when he did send for us, my mother came off the train with 2 babies. I was 3 months old, and my brother's a year older. And she looked around for my father, and he wasn't there. And it seemed that he had an emergency appendectomy, and so one of his co-workers had to come and pick us up at the train, which was quite a start for my mother, who was really a baby herself, because she got married when she was 14 and a half years old, and she was only 17.
Oh, gosh.
So it was quite a trauma for her.
Now, you grew up in the Los Angeles area, and you were one of the, you weren't in the first class, but you were among the first students to graduate from the new Dorsey High School.
Dorsey High School, that's correct. And my brother also went to Dorsey, and from there it was right during the war, so I started to work right after that. And I worked for the Army Engineers, and I worked for this project in Avalon Gardens.
Well, let's go back a minute. What was it like growing up in Los Angeles in those days? Was it true that you could smell orange blossoms? And
it was beautiful.
And it was.
There was such a transition between then and after the war, because once these service people got a look at Los Angeles with the beauty and the weather, they all came back to live there. And it was so different after the war than it was before the war. It was beautiful.
Of course, Los Angeles was kind of sleepy before the war, but then when the wartime effort cranked up and all the aircraft factories and
busy, it was
Los Angeles really grew.
It really grew so fast, and but it was a wonderful place to grow up. I went from one school. I'd start in grammar school, finish that, went to junior high, finished that. We stayed in the same place. We didn't move around, and my father was busy working and taking care of the family.
Now, when you graduated from Dorsey, you said you went to work for a city project?
Yes, Avalon Gardens.
And what was that all about?
Well, that was a building project for the people, all these workers that were coming in from all over the United States. Some of them didn't even know how to use any of the facilities that we furnished there at the home, and they had to be taught how to use all kinds of appliances. In fact, even a toilet.
Yeah.
They had to be taught how to use it. And
this was housing for workers going working in the factories?
Yes, it was a civil service job for me.
Yeah. Where a lot of these folks come from the Midwest
And all over.
Yeah.
All over the country.
Well, and again, I think the younger people today don't really realize how underdeveloped the United States was in the Depression and during the early 40s, because there wasn't a lot of electricity throughout the nation, and there was a lot of around the cities had the paved roads. There was a lot of rock roads.
I remember seeing Grapes of Wrath, if you remember that, and that's the way those people lived.
Yeah.
So they didn't know how to take care of this type of modern facility.
Well, then after that job, you went to work, and this was still during the war, you went to work for the Corps of Engineers?
Yes, I did. Downtown Los Angeles. I worked for a captain there. I was his private secretary, and I worked there for most of the balance of the war.
Now, somewhere along the line, we've got to talk about you meeting Irv. Irving, your husband.
Yeah, that was very funny. I went to a different high school, junior high, than he did, because he was at Fairfax and I was at Mount Vernon. And one of his friends from a club that he belonged to, called the Dukes, asked me if I would go to one of their meetings because they were going to put on a show. And I was a drama major, and I used to be in all the shows at school, so I didn't like this boy I went with, but I thought, well, if I'm going to go meet all those Dukes, I'm going to go. This is a good chance for me to meet them. So I went, and when I met my husband, he said to me, you know, you're not going to go home with George, you're going to go home with me. I said, I am? He said, yes, you are. And I said, okay. So he went and borrowed his father's car, and he took me home, and that's how I met Irv.
Now, did he go to Dorsey?
No, he went to Fairfax.
Okay, so, all right. And during the war, 1943, the two of you got married?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, he was in the Navy.
I'll tell you how that happened.
Okay.
He was in the Navy in flight school, and he said he wasn't feeling well. And so they sent him to the one doctor who had a house that's where he was practicing. And it was a real small town in Texas. And they said, well, you need to have your appendix out. So he said, but you're going to get a 60-day leave if you have your appendix out, or a 30-day leave, I can't remember. But anyway, so he said, okay, take him out. And he had his appendix out, so after he recovered, he came back to L.A. and we got married.
Took advantage of that situation.
He could hardly stand up. He was still sick, but that's what happened.
Now, after the war, the two of you had a little business of your own. You ran an ice cream store?
Oh, yes. We ran an ice cream store. And what was so funny, Irv loved ice cream. He used to eat the ice cream right out of the freezer, practically. And
eating all the profits, huh?
Yeah, no, we never made any profit because, first of all, the business was seasonal, and we were so young and we didn't know what we were doing. And we had all these older people working for us that had been there before because it was an existing business. And they took all the money. They kept buying shoes and clothes. And I got wondering, gee, they can sure afford to buy a lot of stuff. I don't know, we're not making any money. So finally that business failed, and Irv went in to learn the building business with my father.
Now, yeah, your father kind of took him under his wing. And,
Oh, yes.
And taught him how to be a developer.
Right, and a builder. And he started by digging ditches.
Mm-hmm.
My father
I mean,
said,
that's really learning the business from
oh
the ground
yeah,
up.
he says, you got to start at the ground floor, you start digging ditches. And that's just what he did. He used to come home with blisters all over his hands.
Now, we'll jump ahead. You moved to Carlsbad in '63.
Right.
And Irv was one of the developers of the
He was
La Costa.
Yes, he was one of the developers.
And so once La Costa started, I mean, the whole community started. That's, I mean, the resort and the housing around it.
It was so rural that when we first came to look at the property from Los Angeles, we took a horse. We each got a horse from the stables that were off of the street there, and we rode horseback all over the property. And there was tomatoes growing and all kinds of things growing, and coyotes all over the place. And that's how rural it was. And he had a little trailer on the lot there.
Did you ever think that this was going to be your home?
You know what? I thought this was such a small town. We used to go to the Coronado Hotel when we were in LA, and we'd come by Lucady and Encinitas, and it sounded like a disease rather than a, a city.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to think that we actually settled. And when my husband took the job with the company to become one of the developers, he said, if it's near the ocean and the weather is nice, we'll move there. And that's what we did.
And you moved into your house in 1965.
1965, I had 2 coyotes that lived next door to me, and that was my only neighbor.
And you're still in the same house?
We're still in the same house.
Well, now you had 2 kids by then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let's stop you're in Carlsbad, but now you started painting a little bit before that, though.
I started painting in Los Angeles in 1960.
Well, tell me about that first experience.
Oh, that was quite interesting. I had a friend, I still have this friend, who said to me, Muriel, you're always decorating things and you make everything look pretty. I bet you could paint. I said, well, I never tried. She says, well, let's go to this class and we'll go take art lessons. So I bought a charcoal and a pad of paper, and we went to this park, Roxbury Park in Beverly Hills, and the teacher was Antoine, and he set up all kinds of setups, and he said, okay, now draw. Didn't say, how to start, what to do. He said, just draw. So I drew, and everybody else drew in the class, and he came over to mine, and he said, who is this? And I raised my hand. I thought, gosh, what did I do? And he said, you don't belong in this class. I said, why not? He said, you're not a beginner. I said, yes, I am. It's the first time I've ever drawn anything in my life. I just bought a charcoal pad and some charcoal. He said, well, you're not a beginner. I'll talk to you later. So I was excited, and I came home, and I went one more time, and next time he said to me, I have to talk to you. He said, are you married? I said, yes, I'm married. He says, well, I would suggest that you divorce your husband and go to Paris and study art. And I came home, and I told my husband, and he said, quit the class.
He didn't want that kind of influence around him.
So then I was very young and very innocent, so I quit the class. But my friend was furious. She says, well, you've got to paint. You heard what he said. So I went to an art store, and I bought a book on how to paint. And I painted everything in the book. I bought the paints, took it back to the place, and I said, this is what I painted. And she says, you just painted that? I said, yes. She said, well, why don't you frame it? So I framed it, and then I took a whole bunch of them that I painted up to a luncheon that my mother's friends were having, and 2 women wanted the same painting, and they bought a painting from me, which was one of the most exciting days of my life.
And what did they pay for that painting?
$350.
Now, this was about 1960?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. I was shocked. I was really shocked, but it was a thrill.
Now, the second painting, I think while we're talking, they'll probably show it on the screen, the painting that you did of the Artful Dodger
yes,
and Oliver
yes,
from the play that you were involved
Yeah, I saw
with.
a picture of it from an advertisement for the show, and I thought, gee, I'd like to try and paint that. So I did.
Now, you've hung on to that all these years?
All these years.
Yeah. Has anybody tried to buy it?
You know what? It's amazing. They have. And I said, I'd never sell this painting. It's the second one I did. The first one is still hanging in my studio today.
Oh, you got the first one
I
back?
have the first one.
Oh, the
no, not the first one I sold, but the first
I
painting I
understand.
did.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a
alright.
still life.
So now you have been involved in so many things, and I know there's going to be people at home watching this, especially in Carlsbad, that are going to be upset with me when they're probably going to say, "Well, you forgot to talk to her about this." But you've been involved in so many different projects over the years. You worked for the Armed Forces YMCA. You worked for the Cultural Arts. You founded the Cultural Arts
Yes, I did.
Foundation
Patrons
of
the-
Carlsbad.
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
And you've been responsible for so many art projects in Carlsbad. Talk to me about the Cultural Arts Foundation. How did you get involved in that?
Well, John Mamo told me that they needed somebody to use the auditorium at the Carlsbad High School. That it was a nice facility, but nobody was using it, and he'd heard about my talents as far as the drama was concerned, and would I take charge of that and make it into a theater, a going theater. And I met with Mr. Grignon, who was the superintendent of schools at that time, and I said, yes, I will do it. Of course, I'll need some help. And I got Bobby Hoder, who is still running it now, who is the most amazing woman I've ever met. And we produced our first show called The Sound of Music, and it was such a hit. And we really had a lot of help from the community. Everybody was behind us, and it was very, very successful. And from then on, I stayed as president for 2 years, and then Bobby Hoder took over, and she has done a remarkable job with that theater.
Well, the foundation just celebrated its 20th anniversary
That's
with
correct.
The Sound of Music.
That's right, they redid it again.
On the same stage.
Yes, and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful.
Now, you're also involved with the Carlsbad Library and the gallery,
yes.
the
Cliff
Cannon
Lang,
Gallery.
yeah. Cliff Lang is a good friend of mine, and I had a show there for a fundraiser for the library, and I would support it in any way I possibly could, because I think it's one of the biggest assets of the city of Carlsbad.
Folks are still buying your paintings.
Oh yes, oh yes. They're all over the country.
And you told me something very interesting. You don't keep the money.
No, I don't.
What do you do with it?
I do shows for different organizations. I've done shows for the YMCA and the Winston School for Children with Learning Disabilities. I've done for the neonatal center in Sharp Hospital, and I've done for various other organizations. I've given them, donated my paintings so that they could sell them to raise money for handicapped children and abused children. I donated all kinds of artwork for them, and Seacrest, and as many, whoever asks me, I do.
How much money do you figure you raised over the years just with your paintings?
I would say probably close to 150,000.
That's the ultimate in giving, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
As a community
Yes,
activist.
yes,
It's,
I would
there's
say
not,
that.
I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of people working hard and selling things and you know, working in the community and doing rolling up their sleeves to volunteer. But when you can create something like you do and
That's
give
what
joy both for the buyer of the painting and the people that you give the money to for charity.
That's my biggest pleasure.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
That's what really.
Well, let's go through your life with pictures, and because I know the folks at home will want to see some of these. These are great. This is you at 16.
Yes.
Anyway, that's what it says, Sweet
Yes.
16.
Yes.
And this is you and your brother with a very young mother.
Yes. That's my mother.
I was going to say, you not only look like her, you and her look like sisters.
Yeah, that's what they always used to say, that we look like more like sisters than mother and daughter.
Yeah. And this is your graduation
From Dorsey.
Picture from Dorsey High.
Mm-hmm.
And this is you and Herb.
Yeah, that's when he was still a sailor in the Navy.
Mm-hmm. And that's in 42. And then this is when you got married.
Yeah, he was in flight school at that time, and because we got married, they kicked him out of flight school.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah. They don't allow him to be
He
married.
didn't keep his mouth shut when he went back. Huh?
No.
Let's see. This next one is now. This is you and your young family.
Uh-huh.
You and Irv. This is in '55.
That's my
What are the kids' names?
That's Ellen and Michael.
And they're both still in the area. They're
Oh, yes.
here in
She's a
Carlsbad?
teacher in Carlsbad at Acosta Meadows.
Uh-huh.
And he's a developer. He's now working in developing. He developed some land here too, but he's also developing in Phoenix, Arizona right now, and he did some property in Reno.
Great. And this is moving day.
That's moving day.
Now this is moving into your home in La Costa in 1965.
Where we still are.
And that's one of your paintings?
That's one of my paintings. And she was a tennis player and he was a golfer, so that's
Now this is your, what is it, 59th or 50th?
59th anniversary.
Okay.
And that's my son's girlfriend and future wife and my daughter.
Uh-huh. This is your daughter here on the right?
This is my son's
Okay.
future.
Okay, that is your future wife on the right, and your daughter
my
is
daughter
in
right
the
here.
in the center between
Yes.
you and Irv. Okay. And this is the master at work.
Yes, that's my studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time there.
Oh yes.
How many hours a day do you figure you spend?
Well,
Painting?
I like to paint. I usually paint on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I like to spend at least 6 hours each day in my studio those 2 days.
When you work, do you work with complete silence, or do you put on music?
I have music. I never work without music.
What kind of music do you like?
You know what? I listen to 540 with the oldies.
You and me both.
I
Get a
love
kick
them.
out of Jeff Edwards in the morning.
Yeah, oh yeah. I love that because it's all the music from our era
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
that's
very
it.
relaxing. And then of course I have tapes of Pavarotti and Barbara Streisand that I like to listen to. And
Well, I remember, I think the first time I met you was when one of the Richard Glazer concerts down at the
Yes.
Schulman Auditorium.
oh, was he marvelous?
Yeah, he's great.
So marvelous.
He's become a good friend. He's going to be participating with us in this year in the Oceanside Music Festival. So
he's wonderful, just wonderful.
we have some awards. You were named the North County Times one of the Women of Merit in the year 2000. It's hard to, I'm still putting the 19s in front of me.
Yes,
You were a Citizen of the Year for the city of Carlsbad.
that's correct.
You were a Woman of Valor for the Salvation Army.
That's right.
And you were spent a number of years on the Arts Committee for the city of Carlsbad.
That's correct.
And those are just a few of the many honors
Just a
that you've
few.
received over the years.
Yes, yes.
So, well, now you were born in 1923, so now that's your octogenarian.
Yes, I just had my 80th birthday, which was a real spectacular event. And, but you know what? I don't feel like I'm 80. Like, it sounds like I'm old, but I don't feel it.
Feel just like you're 18
Yeah, I have
again?
a lot of energy and I have a lot to do.
Yeah.
So,
So what's on your plate for what's the next project?
well, I'm going to work up another show for the cancer drive in Palm Springs. Radner, you know, she was on
Oh, Gilda Radner.
Gilda Radner is having a big event there, and I was asked if I would donate some artwork for that function. There's about 500 women that are going to be there in January, so I'm working up a show for that, so I can donate to the Cancer
And of course,
Society.
you still you occasionally have shows at the Cannon or at around Carlsbad.
Yes, I've been in Billings, Montana, with my artwork, and I've been in Del Mar Gallery there, and I don't really care too much about exhibiting in galleries because I don't sell them for me. You know,
want to raise that money for the charity.
right?
Yeah.
That's really true because that's
Yeah.
what I do, and
Well, and of course, when people they understand what you're doing and they come to see your work, that motivates them too to spend money.
Yes, it does. And
I mean, in the good sense.
that's right. I want them to be able to buy something that they really love and then know that that money is going to help somebody. And that's what we do.
Have you ever sold a painting that you wish you had back? Or all of them your children that you want? Or?
No, you know what? I keep pictures of them. I recently donated for the Scripps Hospital a painting I put down for the auction. I would do an animal for them, you know, for so much money if they signed up the silent auction. And I always take pictures of these animals that I paint because they're so real to me. And I love them as I paint them, so I do that.
Well, Muriel, we're out of time.
Good.
We have done everything,
Good.
and I know that I've left a lot of your life out.
It's all right.
And there's a lot of people out there who'll say, well, you didn't mention this or you did mention that, but
Don't
I
worry
hope
about
we hit
it.
the highlights.
I enjoyed being with you, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
This has been Living Legacies with Muriel Roston of Carlsbad, and I hope that you've enjoyed that. I'm Tom Morrow. We'll see you again next time here on Living Legacies. This program is made possible through the generous underwriting grants of Hatter Williams and Pretty Insurance Services of Oceanside, providing North County with complete insurance needs for more than half a century. The TriQuest Corporation, providing quality office and manufacturing space in Oceanside. And the North County Times, serving all of North County with complete local daily news coverage and internet services.